that it just records itself? Is there
I think
just
it's a privacy feature.
yeah? That's what I thought. How convenient.
You probably do like a webhook or something. You can write some code to fix that.
Probably a way to exactly, but then they'll break you, right? Like you'll find a way around it. They probably don't want people doing that.
Yeah, well, like Fireflies, there's a bunch of services that'll do it for you. So we just got to reverse engineer that.
Yeah, but then
Maybe
like
CrowdStrike can do it for you.
CrowdStrike, yeah,
Maybe
I
they
mean
can
they
do it
get
for
that
you.
kernel mode driver, so they can do anything they want, right?
Right? I know it's
Y'all-
that joke, but
Yeah, are y'all having issues?
no, fortunately not.
That's good. Well, CrowdStrike just needs to use Intedo, right? Can actually QA their stuff.
Well, they probably had some lessons they learned from SolarWinds. I know that the Datadog did that. So
Oh yeah, I highly doubt that they sign any of their stuff. Like there's this thread right here that John shared, on the Intedo chat. Put it in here. I'm sorry, John. I'll stop talking. This is your meeting.
No, I mean, I think we're waiting for a couple other people to join. Maybe we'll see if they join or not. It's summertime, so people are a little more. I've noticed all the community calls have had a few less people.
Yeah, it's like Datadog. They solved this problem a long time ago. Like Trishake, right? With what was it? Whatever IT that is with Intedo and Tough together, right? And it looks like they shipped an update to their module that broke everything, right? So
yeah, I remember there was also an article from SolarWinds themselves that how they restructured their whole CI and build environment, and they started to use text on change, I believe, to verify what they're doing.
Yeah.
Don't remember the details.
yeah, the Trebuchet project.
Right. Yeah.
That's what it's called. Yeah. Yeah, we
Trevor Rosen.
Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
Trevor Rosen gave a talk on that at Supply Chain Security Con. I think the first one. It was co-located with KubeCon event. And then he left SolarWinds not too long after that to go work at GitHub on GitHub Advanced Security stuff.
Yeah. Is Chains getting a lot of use these days? What's that? I know we know a few people that are using it, right? But is that community pretty active yet, or pretty active still?
Text on change?
Yeah.
Not sure. I know we use Tecton, but I don't know. We are not using change yet.
Yeah. They got like a backend plugin system. We've considered building a Archivista backend for it, which would be pretty nice, but just not there quite yet.
Which is, if you look at the implementation that they have, would that be something that goes up to salsa level 3, or still in the areas of level 2?
I think it depends on your implementation.
Like your pipeline implementation.
Yeah. Well, because Chains, it collects the metadata, but can't directly observe the process, right? So we don't have the metadata is not as rich as you would get from something like Witness, but you do it from an outside observer where the build process can't tamper with that, right? So the metadata about the instructions, the pod spec or whatever, right? That would be like that attestation, but it's also level 3. Whereas if you injected Witness into it, right, it'd be more kind of like also level 2.5. That's kind of like what we do with what GitHub Actions does with all their salsa stuff, right? It's not quite at salsa level 3, or maybe it is. I'm not sure, but I'm not gonna have that debate right now.
No, I've seen it. I've seen a long thread on that on the channel.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, everything above level 1 is a great step forward, I believe.
Yeah, I think once you can collect the metadata, you can answer a lot of compliance concerns, right? And then I think that's an orthogonal concern from security. Like, for example, like this CrowdStrike stuff, right? If they use salsa level 1 and then did a verification on that, it doesn't really like, no one's trying to attack the system, right? It's just maybe they didn't go through the correct process in order to validate that update was right? So you don't need salsa level 3 for that.
No, right.
Yeah, I know specifically for chains trying to get to level 3, or any system trying to use Kubernetes CRDs, it can be challenging because there's always an opportunity for someone to come in between stuff and modify. Like, before chains can actually observe the results or the updates to the task or job pipeline run, someone else could come in and modify that.
I really think the real answer is, figuring out remote attestation, right? Secure enclaves, remote attestation, and then it just, a lot of the discussions go away because you protected the key material and you're directly observing the process and the state of the machine and all that, right? I think until you get to that point, there's always ways that you can be able to bypass the protections and modify these attestations. So kind of a conversation just go in circles, right? Well, this is the thing that actually does protect the systems, but it's really hard to do. It's not cheap.
But then I suppose when you've got like a high level of observation of what's going on in the system, that implies like a high level of control over the system. So like high level access, like a lot of people complain about or worry about eBPF because you need to have elevated privileges on the node that it's running. So like then you run into that concern of like, oh well, now I need to run this kernel driver or whatever in order to get. And that's a whole new problem in of itself.
Yeah, and that's where I think like things like TPMs and secure enclaves can solve a lot of those problems, right? Where you can issue identity, like Spire, right? Swift Spire, I think solves a lot of these problems, but it's just a lot of work to get implemented in its current form.
I've been thinking about Witness, how maybe having a server component, like a central component that has access to the key, and your attestations are being sent off, and so the signing step and the archiving is handed off to a central component, could improve the level of, like, I don't know the right word, but if you hand it off, then at least no one else is able to say, hey, the key is used inappropriately or something like that.
Yeah. Well, we kind of do that with the KMS, don't we?
No, because if you run Witness inside the run, then you still need something in the environment itself that has access to KMS.
Yeah.
So anyone can use the KMS if it knows. So I tried my POC with AWS access through Pod Identity. So I get my access keys in there, or STS, to be able to access KMS, and then use the key, which is kind of good, but still the whole pod can use it. So it can re-sign the attestation if it wants.
Yeah, there's actually a branch somewhere in Witness. It's really old. It's called Witness Spire, and so it actually communicates directly with a Spire server and kind of runs an instance of the Spire agent in process. So yeah, so that would exchange. That does a workload identity on whatever process that you want to invoke, like your build command, right? You workload identity on that, then you have node identity on the machine. And that was kind of cool. It worked, right? We built some plugins for it, but yeah, that might be a branch you want to look at. I don't think we're gonna push that forward anytime soon. All right, we don't have the capacity for that, but it was a lot of fun to build, and it was a good proof of concept to show that hey, we can do like full remote attestation within that witness binary.
Right.
Definitely some gaps in it, but it's the code's there.
Yeah, that sounds kind of similar. It has just been like a brainwave. I like, maybe that could be useful, but I know we are rambling in all kinds of directions. We are not following any agenda. So, John, if you want to.
John, up to you. We're gonna stop talking. Sorry about that, y'all.
It's always interesting discussion. I posted a link to a talk that Chad Kimes from GitHub and Marcella from Intel gave at Open Source Summit. They were looking at a new, I think it's going to be a new level for Salsa, Salsa level 4 for the build track that actually goes all the way down from loading the operating system with a secure boot all the way up through starting essentially the demo they did was with a GitHub runner and measuring every different component all the way up to that level. So it was pretty interesting. A lot of work though to get to that point, kind of as Will was saying. But anyways, while we start off the call, I think I shared the. I'll share again the meeting notes if folks want to sign in. And the first thing is always hit the record button. It's a new item this week, so don't forget. And the next one is new attendee introductions. If there's anybody new that wants to introduce themselves. And I think we see quite a few familiar faces. So, all right. And then project updates for Witness and Archivista. Does anybody have any exciting things that were going on with either recently?
Maybe if I can start. So at the Open Source Summit Europe, we have one day that will be the SOS community day. I will be doing a talk there about our stuff, but actually my main demo there will be an experimental feature that I'm working on my free time here, that it's using Archivista with TUF and using the product attester. When you submit an attestation with the product attester, automatically you'll be adding to the TUF metadata the artifact. It means that you are securing the artifact as well. And also, of course, I will demo securing the policy. I presented it to the last KubeCon in Europe. So I will just be extending this feature to secure the artifact itself but you don't need an extra call using the attestation with the product that contains the digest of the artifact and the name of artifact. So it doesn't matter where you store this artifact. If you are using the GitHub release or even a JFrog Artifactory, you could use the TUF metadata for our stuff together with Archivista to retrieve the attestations, policy, and also the security, the artifact. Something that I'm working. I hope it will finish before the presentation, the event. And I will share also a document about how people can use the combination about Archivista and other stuff as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, cool. There's a question in the community Slack about the archivista.testifysec.io instance. I don't it was a little bit behind. They were trying to store policies in there. So I think there's an update that we could do. I know we were trying to move some stuff from GCP over to AWS. I don't know, Mikhail, if you know anything else about that, or
Not off the top of my head.
okay. Well, we will double check, and hopefully we can update to a new version or the latest version and
All right.
play around with that.
Can you repeat the question for me real quick? I might have missed some context here.
Yeah, the public instance of Archivista. I don't think it's up to date with the latest version, latest release. Someone was trying to store policies in the public instance of Archivista.
Yeah, sorry, I misheard something. Yeah, we're gonna get that updated. So we're currently kind of in the progress of moving a lot of our infrastructure to a different cloud environment. So the public Archivista instance is kind of languished right now, but I'll get that updated over the weekend in the interim while we move things. And that should
Awesome.
have like all the policy support and all that.
And that's cool to see people interested in trying that stuff out. So, any feedback we would love to hear. Let's see here on the. Anybody have anything else on the Archivista side? One other related thing that we don't have quite figured out yet, but we've been playing around with GraphQL API Federation and how we can kind of tie in Archivista with other GraphQL APIs. And so to do that most effectively, we might have to change some schema stuff and other things. So just curious if anybody is interested in something like that, or if they think that would be disruptive. And we'll have probably like more concrete ideas about exactly what that would be. Matthias?
I was just curious what the background story is for doing that.
Paul?
For implementing something. So is it about having a different backend, or is it about being able to have one endpoint and communicate to different GraphQL endpoints? I didn't fully get what the purpose is of what you just mentioned.
Yeah, Cole, you're on mute.
I'll be transparent here, right? So obviously we're a commercial company that's supporting open source, right? And we need to build a product on top of the open source software. And in order to do that and to build a successful product, there's a few changes in the API that we need to make in order to support things in commercial product like authentication, authorization, multi-tenancy, as well as a bunch of the other features that we plan on building, right? So in order, like, this is good though too, because these changes are patterns that we're establishing within the open source to allow other organizations to also build upon these using these same patterns that we're building our commercial product on. So we'll probably have some more discussions and pull requests and reviews on pull requests on some of this. But in order for us to make money as a company, we need to be able to build on the open source that we're developing.
I'd also add on the federation side of things, like I'd say that while that is our initiative or our what we want, there's a lot of benefits to sort of opening up federation and Archivista open source anyways. I see like businesses, if they so wish to, could build their own subgraph, so to speak, the reference metadata in Archivista. So I do think it's a change that benefits everyone. And allows you to expand upon what Archivista already is inside of private organizations if you wish to.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And maybe the most concrete first thing that we were looking at was trying to leverage the Gitoid SHA-256 of a attestation or policy as the primary key when storing it. And that would also be really helpful during disaster recovery and other situations, because you're going to get a consistent database every time if you need to reload attestations or things like that. Because so then if you have any external references or anything else, you'll get the same reference after that recovery. So I think that would be another benefit of doing this. So, but like we said, we'll have a more concrete set of PRs and things like that to kind of show people before any changes go through. So, all right. And then on the witness side, I know we had a couple of PRs. There was one on the docs side from somebody at Defense Unicorns, which was cool. I wasn't able to get the PR to work though. I think it's a consistent like which operating system and which shell are you using for the tutorials kind of things. So it JQ and awk and sed and all those things that we use in the tutorials have little tiny differences between Linux and Mac, and Bash versus Z shell or whatever, fish or whatever. So if anybody else is like, I asked a question, but I don't think I got a response back. Then the other one that was cool to see that I haven't been able to test yet was on the Go Witness side. There was Josh, who I think was here at the last community call. Maybe he submitted a PR around fixing up some stuff with tracing and concurrency support. So that's on Linux, and we also only support I think it's x86 for the trace. Maybe it's any tracing on Linux, but I have to fix up a Linux system in order to test that. So if anybody else has something up and running for that already and they want to take a look, I think it definitely looks like some good improvements to be able to better track files that exist on disks and are open and modified versus newly created files, and also making sure that we capture files that are created and deleted that don't end up being a part of the product list in the end, I think. But and then I think also files that aren't modified at all were coming back in something unexpected. But yeah, I haven't, like I said, I haven't dug into it super deeply, but if you're really interested in tracing, I would definitely check that out.
Yeah, I'll jump in and take a look at that here shortly. I got pinged on it. I know this has kind of been a hectic week, but I'll take a look and jump through the code.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, I think you know that stuff better than anybody else, Mikhail. So, and then there was also some stuff we haven't quite got to with there's a breaking change and a protobuf bump from the upstream SIG store stuff that we have to just get around to fixing, not use the deprecated call anymore. But so it would be a good first issue if anybody wants to look at the dependabot chore there. And then, Tom, we still have your stuff as well with the KMS options, which I think I'll take another pass at. And then there's okay, no, it looks like everything is up to date there. And then I think, yeah, that's most of the stuff. And then Matthias, we still have to get back to the dir hash stuff. I think there was a Golang CI lint failure, but we take a look.
Yeah, I haven't had time myself to go back and revisit the idea again. So a little bit of a
It's like,
hectic period here.
totally get that. It's really close, I think. So
Yeah.
definitely would be good to help you get that across the line. We can help out with that too. So yeah, and I think the other part of the major updates that will be coming for Witness are going to evolve out of the In Toto Policies Working Group that kicked off last week. And so kind of the starting point for this set of conversations is just really trying to get I-10 and I-11 over the line, which are the updates to In Toto layouts and just forget the slight difference. I think the policy language, REGO or CEL or something else for evaluating attributes of attestations. So the newer format. There are a few people who use the link format in Toto Golang or in Toto Python implementation, but I think predominantly people are using things like the salsa attestation and signed SBOMs and different things like that. And there's not actually a formal definition of how to do policy with all of that stuff. So this is kind of what the group of folks getting together are working on, just getting that finished up and formalized. There's people from Tom Hennon from Google has been joining, Marcella from Intel, folks from Testify Stack. Daniel, I've seen you there as well too, which is cool. So there's like a really good group of people. Trishank from Datadog has been there as well too, and Adam from Best Buy. So getting that diverse perspective of kind of how to really make sure that the policies work. And then eventually we're going to kind of unify some of the existing code in the Aditya's attestation verifier into Witness as well. And then just, I think the thing we'll have to tackle eventually is just backwards compatibility and making sure that we don't break anything. Maybe it'll just be a major version bump or something like that on the Witness policies. But I think it'll be cool to see that make progress and go through. I have to put in a request to the ITSC to add it to the CNCF calendar. But if there's a In Toto policy Slack channel, if you want to follow along, and there was a recent post with the meeting link and time and stuff in there as well too. But other than that, we're just kind of just getting started with that and kind of trying to get everybody on the same page with kind of the existing solutions and implementations and the proposal as it stands right now in the ITE. So exciting future things to come there as well too. So and then anybody have any questions about the policy stuff or anything that they like really want to see come out of that work?
I have a question, yeah. I just had a conversation internally in which about policies, and they asked if it supported REGO or something else, and mainly the focus was on maybe something else because we are working with Java a lot, and there's no support for REGO inside Java to be able to execute that. I'm curious with Cell, if I understood it correctly when I was reading the IDE, that would be much easier to support than something like REGO, but I don't know if there are already ideas as to how do we make policies widely acceptable.
Cool.
It has always been my thought that, how we evaluate each of the attestations against the policy language shouldn't be bound to a specific policy language, right? I think Cell is great, but also, we've already encountered use cases that, we can only really solve with Rego. Imagine that you are evaluating over an entire SBOM, right? And you have to do some collection functions and compare this against a vulnerability database, right? These are things that Cell just can't do, but Rego provides the expressivity to be able to do that. So while Rego is complex, I think it provides a lot of functionality that we don't want to lose, right? We're already using it today with some of our customers, so in demonstrations. So that's kind of my take on it. But yeah, I think there's a lot of different great policy languages out there, right? If someone wants to do a data log plugin or Prolog plugin for this, right, more power to them. But it really comes down to both simplicity, right? If Cell is great for that, but doesn't have the expressivity. Rego sucks at simplicity, but is great at expressivity, right? And I just think it's about trade-offs, and providing options is the best way to kind of alleviate both sides of those spectrums, both sides of that spectrum.
Yeah, I get your point. That sounds very logical. What I'm curious about is when we look at the different library implementations to be able to build your policy mechanism. We currently have Go in Toto, I think, or Go attestations. I don't remember exactly what the name of the library is, but it provides us some framework to be able to implement our own attestations or predicates and the format. Will something like that will also be there for policies and go in the same library and follow the same pattern in different libraries for other languages? Then it's very interesting to see, like, how will a policy validator like Cell or Rego or anything else be part of that mechanism? Maybe spin off to a process or how that will look. I'm just curious how that's going to evolve. Not expecting a concrete answer, but it's interesting development. Because it will influence the acceptance a lot. Like, policies are quite a key part of what you will have in the end to be able to say, hey, in Toto is really delivering the value that we need.
Yeah, so you're saying you'd want like a policy validator library in Java, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah.
And then Java doesn't support Rego, right? Yeah. So then you would have that library would have to like shell out to it or something, right? It's not clear exactly how that would work. Something we'll have to consider for sure. JNI is always an option, right? No one likes like JNI, but stuff like that is always an option where we can build. There's another experimental branch of Go Witness somewhere where we built some C libraries out of the Go code, right? So there's a lot of different ways that we can build out libraries of Go Witness. Some ideas have been floated around. There's no real proposals or anything like that, but if like that's something you're interested in, like I would probably love to support you and see, okay, how do we build an SDK using Go Witness for Java? That seems like an interesting task.
I love Go, so I'll stick with Go. But if I can find people in the company that are willing to work on Java, it's fine with me.
Yeah. Well, I know like Jenkins, right? Jenkins, everything's in Java, right? So building a Jenkins plugin, what's the integration point look like there?
Yeah.
Right, so there's definitely some considerations.
Thanks.
Well,
I suppose in the long term, there needs to be a bit of a discussion between like because I know that in Toto has different implementations in different languages. Where would that be the better fit as an SDK versus building a separate SDK in a different language for Witness? I guess in my eyes, the need for different SDKs for Witness is when we want to integrate with directly into build systems for generating the metadata. And then on top of the attesters, of course, and then separately and for signing, and then, but again, hopefully, like the signing part will back off into a library that isn't directly in the witness code base, and for policies as well. Which part in the long run, if we're going to after the Intoto policies working group, and once witness policies become directly aligned with Intoto, yeah, would it make more sense if it was just the Intoto library that people used for that?
Yeah, I think when we look at the consumption of the different libraries, it's interesting to see the use cases and patterns. SigStore pulls in total Golang. And so when you look at the number of uses of in total Golang, it's in the like tens of thousands, because it's a direct dependency of SigStore. So anybody uses SigStore then is also using total Golang. And the only reason SigStore uses it is for the Dizzy envelope definition. So figuring things out like that and being able to steer or guide folks towards things like the attestation library and the protobuf definitions in there, that makes it much easier to generate code in for different language bindings. And there is a CEL library for Java. So if somebody really wants to do that, which is Google actually does, even though they invented code, they do a lot of Java, and actually probably more Java than they do Go internally. The other, I think the more broad point is just about really being able to support the community in whatever languages they have. There was some folks with from the OTel community that were looking at how to be able to improve the supply chain security of all the different versions of OTel SDKs and things like that. And of course, they have a vast, like a huge project, right? And you've got a ton of different like monitoring vendors and APM vendors and stuff that contribute to that project. And so they have every different language possible for support, and they want to do SigStore to sign their Java versions of the SDK. And there's a Maven plugin that's like fallen by the wayside to be able to use cosign to sign, the stuff for it in Maven Central. But then Maven Central doesn't actually support storing any of the signatures or other stuff, and so there's this like long drawn out process that this really critical project is having to figure out on their own. And like that sort of barrier to adoption is something that we definitely want to be able to we don't want to create new barriers for people, because this is the helpful thing to improve the security posture. So, but it's gonna, I mean, it's a lot of work. It's the long and short of it. So it's a lot of work. But yeah. So, and that's a good point too about the policy language evaluation. I'll bring that up at the next call we have for the policy working group. So let's see here. And then Matt, you're still here. I think you have the last item on the agenda.
Yeah, join our Intoto webinar Tuesday, July 23rd. But also curious what kind of questions or what kind of things this group may want us to hit on. So we have a prep call for Intoto webinar in an hour, and didn't know if there's any things that pop up to you all that are like, I want to make sure you guys talk about this, or this would be cool to go down, because there's going to be Santiago from the Intoto steering committee, John Scheel, the man, the myth, the legend himself, and Ian Dunbar from Lockheed Martin. So we'll have maintainer, steering committee, and user all involved. So any thoughts or questions you guys want us to talk about? Sweet. We don't have to talk about anything. No, sounds good. Yeah. The link, the join link is in the Google Doc, but I'll throw it here in chat. Otherwise, hope to see you there. Thanks, John.
Hey, Matthias, I got a question for you with the webinar. You know, with this CrowdStrike issue, like how's your organization? Is your organization using Intodo for QA at all, or is that like on the roadmap? Is there anything there we could pull on and talk about
during the webinar?
Well, yeah, not to you, but just like general topics. Like, how have you all used Intodo for any QA, or is it more like a security, or use it more for security framework in org?
So at this point, I can't go too much into the specifics probably, but
yeah,
we are considering to expand on Intodo internally. There are more people that are getting interested in it.
Yeah.
But we are still figuring out what the best place is to start.
Yeah. And then and Daniel, I know if you don't mind, like how that question for you, like how about your organization? Like I know you've talked publicly about how you used it for security around different points in your supply chain. Have you all considered it for anything around QA? Feel free not to answer if you don't want to. I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
We can't hear you. You're on.
Still can't hear you.
They probably disabled all of his microphones. Oh. All right. Well, appreciate it. Thanks for my Q&A there. But yeah.
I've been in conversation personally with Ian before. I had a call with him. One of the things that he shared that I found very interesting is how they also apply Intodo in the process of getting dependencies in, which is an interesting topic because it's not only about the thing that you build internally, but because they are bringing their dependencies inside the process of bringing them inside and making them verified is something that they also put attestations on, which is expanding further than just saying, okay, this is built, this is the provenance of our stuff. This is actually what we are bringing in, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, before we started Testify, Mikhail and I were working on DoD Platform 1, and one of the issues they had was thinking about like all these embedded systems that they have, right? Their software, but you have to not only make sure that the software works, but you have to make sure the software works with this version of the hardware, right? And if you load the wrong version of the software into the wrong version of the hardware, right, and you could have some sort of failure mid-flight, it's a big issue. So I think, you know, and we talk about a lot of other things like AI models, right? Like just ensuring that these things undergo the right testing is a very difficult problem, especially when you start enumerating the, you know, multiple versions of hardware, multiple versions of software, multiple architectures. It's really difficult to track these things. And that's where I think like an attestation linked based framework like Intodo that you can build a graph on all these things. It's really powerful. And I don't think it's really been used a lot, right? That's not a story that we've really talked about a lot of the Intodo community. It's been about insecurity and SALSA level 3, you know, all this other stuff. But does that stuff really, I mean, it matters, right? But that's an active threat where you have to have an attacker targeting the system that's very good at what they're doing. Whereas, you know, you just miss a QA step. Right? That's just human nature. That will happen. Given enough iterations, enough cycles, you will have a mistake unless you have a verifiable process in place. So,
yeah, that's one thing that I also noticed I think in the communication that I saw from Testify Sec earlier, is that the part about the compliance, not only about security, but about how Intodo can facilitate compliance. And get the right data out to answer those audit questions is quite relevant for a lot of companies. In most cases, maybe there's more business case for the audit part, then that security will be a driving force, depending on the maturity of the company when it comes to security, of course. But compliance seems to be one of those areas where if we are not compliant, we are not allowed to run as a company. So, yeah,
it's a pretty big risk there, right? So, yeah, really good conversations. I look forward to maybe hearing it continue a little bit during the webinar. I know Ian will be on it, so we can probably ask him directly, right? Cool.
will it be recorded, by the way?
Yes, it will.
Good. It will be late in the evening for us here, so probably have to send it around to some of my colleagues.
I'll make sure to send you the link as soon as it's over, Matthias.
All right. That's everything we have on the agenda. Anybody have any other last minute questions, thoughts? All right. Well, we appreciate you joining. We have a actual recording this time, so I'll share that in the Slack channel. I'll get it uploaded on YouTube and everything else, and we'll share the links out. So other than that, we'll see everybody again soon. Hopefully at the webinar next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.